If you feel like you're doing all the right things to lose weight in perimenopause and you are still not seeing results, this might be why. What if the advice that you've been following, like cutting carbs, working out fasted, or obsessing over the scale, is actually working against your hormones? I used to do all of it too, but when I stopped, that's when the real change happened. We've been taught to eat less and move more and cut treats and maybe add some endless cardio, and that'll fix it. But here's the truth. In perimenopause, your body is changing, and trying to change it using the rules from your 20s and 30s can leave you feeling stuck, frustrated, or worse, burned out in a body you are not happy with. Fat loss and muscle gain are possible after 40, but the strategy has to change. How do I know this? I'm Christy, and not only am I going through this crazy life stage too, but I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I help women navigate perimenopause with root cause, real food strategies. This isn't about just my clinical experience, this is also personal. These are the exact shifts that I made to feel stronger, leaner, and more like myself again. So let's dive in. The first is that I stopped avoiding carbs. Carbs are not the enemy. In fact, I increased the amount of carbs I was eating and I started using them strategically, especially around my workouts. So I eat carbs before to fuel my muscles and give me energy so I can lift harder, and then after to support recovery. That helps blunt cortisol, it supports my muscle growth, and reduce the cravings of all the carbohydrates later in the day or later in the week. When I eat carbs, I feel better, I lift better, I recover better, which means I feel a lot stronger too. The next is that I stopped working out fasted. Of course, there's a lot of different viewpoints on intermittent fasting and how it can support perimenopause. In fact, I followed a lot of those rules to the T for multiple years. But what I found out, not only with myself and also clients within my practice, is that the fastest way to stress your body in perimenopause is to not fuel it. I used to think that fasted workouts burned more fat. That's kind of nuanced. And reality for me, it was just burning me out and not giving me the results that I wanted for the effort that I felt like I was putting in. Now, I eat a small meal with carbs and protein beforehand. And since I'm an early morning workout person, what that looks like for me is I typically drink essential amino acids, which is a protein, and something with more sugars in it. So for me, that's typically dates. They taste like candy, so why not use them to fuel my workouts? And on the weekend, I'm typically not working out super early in the morning, so that means that I'm eating a whole meal for breakfast before I hit the weights. And after my workout, I am eating something with protein and carbohydrates at least 60 minutes after to help with my recovery and support my blood sugar later in the day. And using this strategy, my performance and my recovery improved almost immediately. And if you're confused about fasting, I get it. I have a full video on fasting in perimenopause with my take on it, and I'll link that one in the description. The next is that I stopped chasing the scale. And I know that this one is hard because I was told this for so many years, and I would try to do it, but it was really difficult to just ignore something that was ingrained in my head for decades and decades. So I would still step on the scale, and my weight was going up and it was going down, and it was all I could focus on. Here's what I realized. I knew this, but I didn't really believe it, is that the scale doesn't tell you if you're building muscle. It doesn't tell you if you're regulating your hormones. It doesn't tell you if you're stabilizing your blood sugar. I could weigh the same amount, but be very different sizes and feel very different. Once I started focusing on how I felt, my energy, my strength, my sleep, my digestion, how my clothes felt, and just generally my progress actually sped up. And if you still care about those hard metrics, I get that. And I think that there's a place. And that's when I recommend doing something like a DEXA scan, which measures your lean body mass, your fat percentage, and your bone, which is great for our age anyway, because starting to track bone now is helpful to get that benchmark earlier when we can do more about it than waiting until we're in our 60s, which is when insurance starts to cover bone scans, unless you have specific risk factors. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to wait until my 60s when bone mass starts to decline in our mid 30s. If I'm having accelerated bone loss, I want to do something about it now. But generally speaking, the DEXA is really awesome for being able to measure, are you actually building muscle? Are you staying the same, or are you losing muscle? And where is that fat percentage in there as well? It tells you so much more information than just a scale. Hey, if this video is helpful for you, I would love it if you would hit like, subscribe, or share it with a friend. It really helps give this kind of support to more women who need it, because this season is hard enough without all the bad advice. Thank you. The next one is I stopped prioritizing endless hardcore cardio. I did multiple marathons. I was a spin instructor. I loved Insanity. Did anyone else do those videos? I loved jumping. I loved just melting into a big puddle of sweat on the floor, and I was still gaining fat or the scale wasn't budging at all. And I think there are 4 really big reasons for this. 1 is that it was increasing the stress on my body. 2 is I was prioritizing fitting my cardio in over lifting. So I wasn't lifting as much or as hard as I should have to truly build muscle. I also wasn't moving as much throughout the day. I'd run for an hour and then I'd sit all day. And lastly, all this cardio, I was generally much more hungry. In fact, like ravishing hungry, especially on the days with the longer runs. Does that happen to you? Do you feel like you get more hungry after a lot of cardio? Now I lift 4 to 5 days a week, alternating muscle groups. I walk daily, at least 10,000 steps throughout my day, and I do sprinkle in short bursts of high intensity cardio if and only if I feel good. And that's maybe 1 to 2 days a week for 5 to 10 minutes total, which includes alternating between bursts of cardio and rest. Less cardio meant more muscle and better results, and honestly, just more energy overall. And next is I stopped restricting treats. This was a big one for me. I used to be all in or all out. Were you like that too? Let me know in the comments. I think that's the case for a lot of us. I'd avoid sweets during the week, and then I'd binge like crazy on the weekend. Now I build them into my week intentionally. So I track my food when I need to. I do that most weeks, maybe 3 to 4 days a week, and I make space for the things that I love, never sacrificing protein, always prioritizing that one first, and I always make space for the things that I love within that, usually falls within the carb and the fat ratios, never sacrificing protein. Then when I get to the weekend and maybe go out to eat with my family or go get ice cream with my family, I'm less likely to feel like I want to binge and eat all the things. There's no guilt, there's no spirals, it's just balance, and it feels so good. And I know that these types of tips won't necessarily work for everyone, but at the end of the day, the biggest key here is that starving yourself does not work in this life stage. But that can be hard to believe when we have hardcore beliefs that have been ingrained in our head for decades. So if you're feeling like you're trying all the things and you're not seeing change, here's a video with specifics on 5 things that I would do if you're feeling stuck when it comes to weight gain in this life stage. Start with one of the shifts in this video or the other video and see how your body responds. You've got this, and I'm here with you every step of the way. See you in the next one.